Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be going over the rest of the Temporal Forces cards and reviewing them for the GLC format. For those of you who don't know, GLC is a format. It's expanded on, essentially, so black and white on, I guess I should say, with a few bans, but not that many. And it's singleton, so one of each card. It is single prize, so in non-rule box, so we'll talk about that, but there are A specs and you can't play those. And it is also monotype, so you need to look at each type within a vacuum and how it synergizes with the other cards of its type. And also, I will be referencing other decks and things like other decks that people play in GLC currently that like obviously don't play these cards yet. First of all, starting with fighting, we have Medsham, nothing particularly impressive, but then we have Relicanth. With this ability, Memory Dive, each your evolved Pokemon can use any attack from its previous evolution, so you still need the energy. This is really interesting. I'm extremely hyped for this card in Standard. I don't know how I feel about this card in GLC, though. I'm not super familiar with fighting, mostly because it's kind of bad. I was looking through some fighting decks, and for the most part, I couldn't really see any uses for it. Looking at this deck, which is more evolution focused than most, still nothing amazing. Mostly you're looking at basics. There are the Hitmons, there's Hawlucha, there are a few other big basics, and there are Pokemon like Lucario, Annihilate, Machamp's very commonly played, but the previous evolutions don't commonly have good attacks. So, yeah, I don't really know. Most of them, as I said, do just run a lot of basics. Sudowoodo, there is, I don't remember all the basics that are played, but yeah, it's mostly basics, a few evolutions, but not with amazing like stage ones that evolve into the stage two. Oh, okay, Machoke is really good, but its ability is really good. You can't copy that. So I don't think this card's going to be super good right now, but it is pretty interesting. Next up, I'll talk about Excadrill, I guess. I'm not very familiar with Excadrill in the format. Oh, there are some good ones. So there is the this one that mills from your own deck 4, which is a lot, but you do 120 for one on stage 1. Or if you have 3 or fewer cards in deck, you do 180 for one on stage 1, but obviously that's kind of awkward. Top of that, there is this one with Rototiller, shuffle up to 4 cards from your discard into your deck. Both of those are pretty good, but don't see too much play because they're a little awkward. But we do have this extra drill that does 180 for fighting colorless, 50 to itself. And this new Drillbur on play, you can search the deck for up to 3 basic fighting energy and put them in the discard pile. This is useful in certain scenarios, but there aren't great ways to get value out of this. The main one is going to be um, Colossal, which gets fighting and fire energy from the discard. But this only puts fighting energy into the discard, so you will need to get the fire in other ways. It's not terrible, but I don't know if you'd play this. But the extra drill is kind of interesting as well. Next up, we have Golurk, but that's not particularly good. We have Lycanroc. In this one, I mentioned a Boltund in the last video, which was either yesterday or a few days ago, and it's interesting. It's pretty much the same thing on a stage 1. For one colorless, you do 50 and search your deck for, or no, sorry, you attach up to 2 fighting from your discard to your bench Pokemon anyway, like, as opposed to Bolton, which I believe searched for it. I'd say this is a little worse, because obviously you need the energy in the discard. You do have things like the aforementioned Drillbur, which can get energy in the discard, but I mean, come on, it's not that powerful of combo or anything like that, so I think Lycanroc is okay, but not super powerful. We have Mudstale, nothing particularly interesting. You can accelerate some energy and do some damage, but nothing too crazy. I'm not going to talk about too much about pre-evolution, so I don't know if these are necessarily the ones you play. And this Colossal, unfortunately, is very expensive. But this attack can do 180 for 1 energy if it's like a Luminous or something on this stage 2, so that's an option, but I was talking about the other Colossal, and it is much better. Next, we have Great Tusk. We have 2 Great Tusks. This first one, if any of your bench Pokemon have damage counters on them, this hits 160 for fighting colorless. This is pretty interesting. There is a Donphan. You can play like Great Tusk and Donphan. They're not the same, so you can play them both. Donphan will damage your bench, and there are some other ways to do it. And then you can attack with Great Tusk. There's a throw. You can do stuff like that, and that's kind of interesting. Fighting does not have great acceleration, but if you're able to find a way to use energy acceleration, you can use this. But we have this other Great Tusk, which is kind of interesting. I was talking about Excadrill, this one that is like a control style card, or a resource recovery style card. And then you compare it with this Great Tusk that mills. And this will mill cards from the top of your opponent's deck, but if you played a supporter, it mills 4 for 2 colorless, which is really good. 140 HP, and there are ways to make it tankier, a lot of ways. So this is a pretty interesting card. Fighting doesn't have great mill options. You do have a Whiskash, which mills, and there might be some other cards, but I don't know. This Great Tusk is interesting. It opens up the potential of a fighting build deck. Sandy Shocks is pretty cool. Magnetic Blast, it does 20, but if you have 3 or more energy in play, it does 70 more. So then it's going to hit 90. It doesn't hit weakness. That isn't a huge deal though, because all your other Pokemon are hitting weakness, so it's fine. But hitting 90 for one fighting is good, but obviously energy acceleration, you need that on somewhere else. I'm not a big fan of this. Next up, we have Arbok. It apparently burns, confuses, and poisons. I didn't really know anything about this card, but it doesn't seem particularly good. And you can do 70 for 2. There are a new Haunter and Ghastly, but I don't think they're that good. We do have a new Mighty Ina, but I also don't think this is that good. You can do 50 and switch out your points active to the bench, but that doesn't seem that good. Next up, we have Sableye. This one's really interesting. There are some good Sableyes in Darkness, I should say. Um, Let me find them. So, or like, yeah, so there's this poison one, there's this one, but the one people would use, there's the Junk Hunt one to recover. And then there's also this one that lets you look at the top card of your deck and you can discard it. You can also stop your opponent from using one of their attacks, which is pretty annoying. This Sableye here is move any number of damage counters from your opponent's bench to their active. That's pretty interesting because that obviously is like damage moving, not a very common feature that you can have in large quantities, and it's not in super large quantities here either. But to me, it's a pretty interesting card. I don't know if it has enough potential, especially with the other Sableyes that it is competing with, but I still think it's a pretty interesting card, and as I said, has some potential. Next, we have Roaring Moon. It does 70 and 10 more for each ancient card in your discard. Unfortunately, this is pretty terrible because there aren't that many options. I don't know if there are any other darkness ancient Pokemon. I'm trying to think. I was trying to think because there's Roaring Moon. Oh, there's Brute Bonnet. There we go. It was on the tip of my tongue. So Brute Bonnet. There's obviously there are some ancient trainers and stuff, but yeah, this isn't very good. It's not really something you can build around. I don't think it's kind of close-ish, but it's I'll actually pull up all the ancient cards that are in the game. I guess I need to do Japanese standard and here we go, ancient. So in terms of Pokemon, that didn't what. There we go. I don't know why there's 2 of every card. Um, Anyway, so you have Roaring Moon, you have Brute Bonnet. You can't play Roaring Moon EX, obviously. But then you have Sada's Vitality, the Tool, Explorer's Guidance, and then this card, the Earthen Vessel. I guess you can't play the Ace Spec either. So that's only 6 cards you can play. If you got 5 in this card, it's 120 for 2, which is okay. It's pretty decent. And even like 70 or 80 or 90 for 2 Darkness on a basic with decently high HP is decent. And then you have Brute Bonnet, you can poison. You have a few options. I don't completely despise the Ancient Darkness package, but it doesn't seem super powerful either because it's not. I mean, there aren't that many. Next up, we have Fortress. Nothing too good here. Then we have Mawile. Switch out when your opponent's bench to the active D30 to new active. We see this a lot of times. It's never been that good. But then we have Metang. When starting your turn, you may look at the top 4 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic metal you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like, and then shuffle the other onto the bottom of your deck. This is pretty good, like really good. I don't know if there's. I'm pretty sure there's not a good Metang. Oh, what are the settings we're switching with? Okay, yeah. In terms of Metagross, I don't think there's anything that good, unfortunately, to evolve into. I mean, okay, there are some like okay ones. This one's funny. In terms of like the best ones, you do have this one, which you can get into play without evolving. You do have this one that gives all your Pokemon free retreat, which is pretty sick. And then you have this one, which is allows you to like it's okay. It's okay. It's a fun little card, but not that good. But anyway, so we have a few Metagross options you can evolve into. What's this one? Oh, and this one lets you like it's a rope. So anyway, there are some Metagrosses you can evolve into, but Metang's pretty good. There's also a new Metagross which is 200, but I think the energy acceleration is just really good. You do have Bronzong, so I'm going to pull up a metal list. I'm a little nervous about the consistency. We see a list like this. You'd have Bronzong for acceleration and a few other options, but mostly Bronzong. And this is pretty good. You have a bunch of attackers, and none of them are too expensive. Here we do see the Metagross as well, which you can get into play with Lana and a few other things. But then you have somewhat cheap attackers. You have Zamazenta as well. There was another Bronzong that moves energy around, so you could do Metang with that Bronzong. There's also a Magnezone, which is kind of good. And there's a lot of weird things going on with metal typing. I think it is a pretty cool type nonetheless, and Metang is a nice addition to it. It is pretty good. Melmetal does 230 for 5. Why does this exist? I don't know. Iron Treadstone is really interesting. It only works with it's a future Pokemon as long as it has this tool attached. It is fighting in metal. For metal colorless, you do 60, and you move an energy from this to your bench Pokemon. If you do have the tool as well, you are going to be hitting 80. You will have free retreat. Um, so this is interesting because it obviously gives you type coverage. It is awkward to use, right? It's pretty awkward. You're not getting super good value out of the tool because it doesn't. I don't think there are any other metal Pokemon, but it is really interesting having this dual type coverage. Um, because like fighting is a decent type to hit for weakness in a lot of cases. You are weak to fire, and so fighting is not really going to help you there. But I don't know. I think it's a pretty neat little option. I don't really like it that much because it does take a like 2 cards. An opponent can somewhat easily bump the tool as well, and then you don't really have any value here. So I'm not in love with this card, but it's okay. Next up, we have Koraidon. Koraidon's a pretty interesting card, but not very good. It does more for each of your ancient Pokemon in play, so yeah, probably not the play there. You can do 130 and Shred. Miraidon, same idea. It's good for future Pokemon, but not really what you're looking for. Then we move on to colorless, and there are a few insane colorless Pokemon, and actually we won't be doing. Should we do trainers? We won't do trainers today. We will. Most of them are pretty bad. So, but colorless Pokemon, we got starting things off with Lickitung, and your opponent reveals their hand, put 2 basic Pokemon you find there onto their bench. This is actually really interesting. Licky is pretty bad, but Lickitung's interesting. I don't know if there are cards like this. I'm not super familiar um, in the colorless typing. It's interesting. Colorless Control is a deck, but not one that people play too much, one that's kind of fallen out of favor. There's some bans. There are like a lot of colorless bans, and colorless is still a very good type, but I'm not sure if people are playing it too much with like control stuff. You're looking at like Oranguru, or no, Oranguru's been. You're looking at like Bunnelby, and Bunnelby's really good, but not necessarily in control. I'm looking at lists with ties to see if they like did it, but it looks like people aren't really playing colors control at all. But this could be a nice little addition. But I don't think it's super good either. Next up, we have this really interesting Noctowl for 70, for 2 colors. You would do 70, and you may search the deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This card's super cool because it lets you set up. I don't think it's really quite good enough, but it's pretty interesting. Next up, we have Dunsparce, pretty generic, but we do have the Dunsparce. With this insane ability, Dashing Draw, once during a turn, you may draw 3 cards. If you do, shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached into your deck. And this is interesting. Obviously, there isn't any. I think this isn't the first to Dunsparce. Is it the second? It is the second. Yes. Um, it's pretty interesting. Its draw ability is obviously really nice, but then it goes back into your deck. The question is, colorless already has a good draw in the form of Barbarrel, Pidgeotto, and also Chinchino, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, actually. But I think if you're not playing most of those, then the Dunsparce is really good. You do shuffle it back into your deck. It's not super reliable, but it's a nice little draw engine as an add-on to like Chinchino and Pidgeotto. Skitty's nothing interesting. This might be the best Skitty, but that's like a control thing. Delcatty, nothing crazy either. But then we do move on to Chatot. Call for Family for 3 is actually pretty good. Or search deck for 3 basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench. That's interesting, not particularly good, but it is an option. Then we move on to this P-Dove. There's an Unpheasant, which does 180 for 3 colors, can attack next turn, or 70 for 2 colors, put an energy from your opponent's active into their hand. There is also, let me look at the other options. There is this one that isn't super good. There is this one in this one that can remove your opponent's active. I'm not actually very familiar with a lot of these, to be honest, because they're kind of bad. There is also this one, though. It does 50 for 2 colors, takes 50 less, or 150 for 3, discards an energy. Probably worse than this new one, which is still pretty good because P-Dub's ability, Emergency Evolution. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's HP is 30 or less, you may search your deck for an Unpheasant or Unpheasant EX, which you can't play, and put it onto this Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. The big thing here is obviously that it's not that hard to do. There are a number of ways, notably, there is I forget the names of the cards. There is Gapejaw Bog. There we go. I kept thinking Galarmine. Gapejaw Bog lets you do it, as well as Team Magma's Secret Base. There we go. And speaking of like playing IRL, this card's I think expensive. So yeah. Let me see. Okay, it's not that much, but I don't know. I think limitless prices also aren't super accurate. But anyway, it's a little awkward to get. But you can play both of those cards, and then you play this if you dive down, then you evolve instantly into Unpheasant, which is really interesting. Oh, also while I'm here, one subscribe. Yay! I'm getting close to 1,000. But that is not the main thing here. What I want to say, check out my community tab. I'm doing some polls to rank these cards actually in standard, and I imagine some of you aren't familiar with a lot of them. So this video and the previous video are really useful to learning about them. Obviously, I'm talking about them for GLC, which isn't the same as standard, but if you know what the card does, you can judge it in either format. Anyway, this speed up's kind of fun. I don't know if it's good enough. Now we move on though to the big card, Chinchino, special roll. It does 70 damage for each special energy card attached to this Pokemon. So double turbo, double colorless aren't giving you extra damage. But they are good because obviously they are special energies you can play. So you can play lots of special energies, and colorless usually does with Porygon-Z or Archeops or something, probably one of those two. And then you get lots of special energy on your Tinchino. If you get 3 on, then you're hitting 210, which is probably enough to one-shot most things. Even 2 is 140. That's enough. This Pokemon is really powerful, but there's a really good Chinchino. Arguably the best draw in the format. Discard 1, draw 2. We've seen it on Curlier. We've seen it on a different Chinchino. We've seen it in a lot of places. It's pretty good. So losing that, I don't think it's worth it, but this card is very solid. It's a very powerful attacker as well. So I could see you playing it, but then you would probably be playing something like that to Dunsparce to make up. Oh, there we go, to Dunsparce to make up for that lack of draw engine. Next up, we have Drampa. I guess I'll talk about Iron Jugulus as well. If it's in the active and damage from your opponent's Pokemon, you put 3 damage counters, and you hit 110, it's 130. It's not very good. Drampa here also. This one's kind of interesting. If all your bench Pokemon have at least 1 damage count on them, which kind of synergizes with the P-Dove, then you get to do 220 for 3 colors. Now that's a lot. It is 3 colors, so it's a little awkward to pay, but it's still not too bad and an interesting option. We are getting Ancient Boost Energy and Future Boost Energy capsules reprinted, but that doesn't really matter. What does matter also is not the 7 A specs that we're getting. Those also don't do anything. I'll talk about the other cards though, and some of these are pretty big deals. Bianca's Devotion. Also, I don't think these oh no, it looks like these translations are correct, the names of the cards. So Bianca's Devotion, heal all damage from one of your Pokemon that has 30 HP or less remaining. I'd much rather play Max Potion or Scoop Up Net or AZ or Acerola or Cheryl. There are cases in which this is good, but obviously they're pretty niche. Certain decks might have synergy with this, however, with the card it's gonna say Fighting Fury Belt, but I don't remember. There's a card that lets you like live on really low HP. Is it Hustle Belt? I don't think it's Hustle Belt. No. Um, is it a ban card? I don't know. There's some card that lets you oh, Sash, Focus Sash. There we go. That says if it's a fighting Pokemon and you would be knocked out, you don't get knocked out. And you can go ahead and heal with Bianca's Devotion. Also, Bianca's Devotion, there's an A spec that does that. Obviously, that doesn't matter right now, but Bianca's Devotion is good there. But Focus Sash is pretty interesting, pretty potentially really powerful, obviously. In fighting decks, I don't know if they usually play it. As I said, fighting is not the best type traditionally as well. But having that added survivability is incredibly powerful, arguably almost broken. It's really, really good. I don't think a lot of lists run it, but if you want to run some control style deck, then you would kind of need it. Anyway, I think it's a really powerful combo, those two, but it's pretty niche. I don't think it's quite good enough. Boxed Order lets you search your deck for 2 items, then end your turn. I don't think it's good enough. There are other cards kind of like this. Again, in control, this could be useful, but I don't think it's good enough. Buddy Buddy Poffin is absolutely bonkers. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. Put them into your hand, or sorry, put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Obviously, getting basic Pokemon is always going to be good, and this is really good. A lot of decks run low HP basics. Some don't. A lot don't as well. Let's take a look at water. In like the main water deck, you do have a lot of options. You have Sobble, you have Hisuian Baskin, Remoraid, and Snom, and then I wonder if there's a Citadel. There's not a Citadel with that low HP. I'm assuming there's not a Whalmer with that low HP. No, but oh wait, no, and this one's not legal anyway, and it's too high. But there are a lot of Pokemon that do have this lower HP, and some that don't. But if you ever play Battle VIP Pass, this is probably better. I would not really recommend playing Battle VIP Pass in GLC as it's kind of bad. Um, Most decks don't. A few people occasionally do, but I'm also not a big fan of it in standard either. But Buddy Buddy Popin's a really solid card and obviously a great search. It's a card that you definitely want to play in a lot of decks because it just has good value a lot of the time. And you can almost build towards it as well. Cryptomaniac's Code Breaking, really long name. Search deck for 2 cards and put them on top of your deck. This is nice. It's the same thing as Mallow. Mallow's pretty good. This is, I guess, equally as good. Actually, no, it's. Is it as good? What does a iron? I don't remember. I think it's equal as good, which is like fine. I mean, it's good. You can play it in certain decks, and it's really nice. And other decks, it's kind of useless. But when it's good, it's just a second Mallow. And speaking of second versions of cards, um, no, maybe not. I thought there's some other card that was like a pseudo reprint. Oh yeah, the Explorer's Guidance is a pseudo reprint of Hapu, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Where is that card? Yeah, anyway, so first we have Airy, though. Your opponent reveals a hand, choose 2 items you find there, discard them. This doesn't get tools, but it does get, items. It's pretty useful against, like, if you're playing Control, but as I said, Control's not that popular, so I don't think this is that good. Explorer's Guidance, look at the top 6 cards of your deck, put 2 of them into your hand, discard the others. This is a pseudo reprint of Hapu. Hapu's not that good. Not a terrible supporter, but I wouldn't play this unless, as I said, you are running that Darkness Ancient package. Full Metal Lab, all metal Pokemon, take 30 less from attacks. This is pretty decent. Does this not exist? I thought there was some card like this. Magnetic Storm, I think. No, I don't know. Maybe there's not. There are cards similar to this, but this is pretty nice. Obviously, taking less damage is always nice. Metal is defensive type. It's a decent stadium. Something you could kind of build more with. As I said, I think there are similar stadiums. Let me find it. I know there was Crystal Cave where you take less damage, but yeah, it's a really nice effect to just or sorry, Crystal Cave where you heal. This you take less damage. Taking less damage is probably often considered better than healing. I am struggling, obviously. Okay, there we go. So there's another card. Come on, there we go. So we have a bunch of stadiums. It's like a double-sided stadium, and I've lost it, and I'm sad. Reverse Valley. Oh no, you just take 10 less, looks like. So that's fine. But this 30 less is more than 10, so this is better. Yeah. Future Booster under Capsule got reprinted. Hand Trimmer. Each player discards cards from the hand to play 5 left. 5 is a lot. This is not super useful, especially in GLC. In Standard is more useful, but no, GLC, obviously, forcing a opponent to discard can be annoying, but this is pretty niche. Heavy Baton's interesting. Each Pokemon that has a 2 cost of exactly 4. Um, then if it's like knocked out, if it's in the active and knocked out, then you can move up to 3 basic from that Pokemon to your bench Pokemon any way you like, as opposed to Wishful Baton, which is similar except it's to one of your bench Pokemon, but it doesn't have to be your 2 cost of 4, which is much better. Heavy Baton is super niche. I don't know if you'd ever play this. Now we have a few more. We have Morty's Conviction. It's very similar to Zinnia's. Use it only if you discard another card, then draw one for each your opponent's bench Pokemon. The cards like Colress, Zinnia's Resolve, I'd play over this as well. Although, I don't know, I could see an argument for this, but it's just mediocre. Perilous Jungle. During Pokemon Checkup, put 2 more damage counters on each poison Pokemon, except Darkness Pokemon. So if you are running a Darkness deck, this is better than Fairbanks State Gym, which is the same thing, but to any type, which is actually like pretty valid. I think this card is good in Standard, but not insane because of not hitting Darkness. But I mean, it's just a pretty good card. Nothing insane to say about it. But you do have Hypnotoxic Laser, a few ways to poison, and Darkness Poison is a deck. And this would be played in it. Although Darkness Poison isn't like a big deck. Lastly, we have three more cards. A Rescue Board, which costs us one less, but if you have 30 HP or less remaining, it's free. This is kind of useless. Floatstone's directly better. There are other tools that are generally better as well. Salvatore, search your deck for Pokemon and evolve it, but it's like Wally, but so you can use it the turns put into play, but you can't get Pokemon with abilities, so it's directly worse than Wally. Wally is in the format. Yeah. So Salvatore is not very good unless you have some weird niche case where you like really want to build around Wally in a case that doesn't play an evolution Pokemon. In Standard, it's gonna be good, but GLC it probably won't. Lastly, though, we have Mist Energy, and I want to say it's kind of like some other energies we've had before. It definitely feels like it, but I could just be making stuff up as well. But pretty much what it does, it stops effects of attacks done to the Pokemon this card is attached to. As I said, it sounds very familiar. I could be wrong though. There are there are type specific energies as well. So there is water, there's splash energy, which no, there is wash. No, wait, is this throw energy? Oh yeah, no, wash water energy here, which does the same thing, but to water Pokemon. And I think that might be it. I'm not familiar with all these. I kind of forget, honestly, what all these do. But yeah. So this is like useful in a lot of situations, though, because there are a lot of effective attacks, but also you only have one copy of it. I think it's okay. It's certainly an option to toss in decks, but nothing broken. Yeah, it's cool. I think special like Colorless could definitely play it. And Colorless has good up special energy, obviously. Let's see what they run. They do run pretty much all these are pretty good, but Draw Energy isn't super good. Their Therapeutic is like okay, but I mean it's nice of Snorlax, but it's only good in Snorlax. I guess I'd say Draw Energy is pretty replaceable, so you could replace that with Mist Energy if you wanted. It's really up to you. Obviously better than Regenerative and V-Guard Energy, but yeah, I definitely think that Mist Energy is a pretty interesting card that will be played in some decks, not broken by any means or anything like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as I said earlier, consider subscribing, liking, commenting. Check out my community tab as well. I'm doing some cool stuff. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.